Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I have a story to relate to you. It is not my story, but it did pop up on my Facebook. And I am so glad that there is a final conclusion in this lady's story. In November of 2018, my husband and I were traveling through a very racist, corrupt state of Connecticut while 8 months pregnant when we decided to stop at a nearby hospital for back pain. After walking inside, we were subsequently verbally and physically attacked as we were literally held as hostages at Middlesex Hospital in Middleton, Connecticut, who claimed that we looked suspicious as a biracial couple. They started accusing us of being Muslim terrorists, homeless drug addicts, and criminals running from the law. They said they didn't believe that we were from Tennessee, claiming that we didn't have Tennessee accents. So they had their staff go out to the parking lot and find our car in the parking lot with Tennessee plates, which was registered to our name and addresses, just like we told them. They told us they found it to be messy and believed that we were living out of our car. Then the racist medical staff just kept attacking and making more and more unfounded accusations against us. We kept telling them that none of those things were true and then asked to leave, which we had then the right to do. They threatened us with arrest for child endangerment, even though I was not in labor and neither I nor the baby was in any distress. They refused to let us leave, claiming we were a flight risk, forcibly restrained and sedated me, and performed a medically unnecessary C-section on my pregnant body against my will and without my consent. Think about that. They performed a medically unnecessary C-section against this woman's will to get her baby out of her stomach. Our daughter was ripped from our arms just hours later, as they told us that we would not be allowed to bond with her or take her home. They told us point blank that they did not believe that we were, as a biracial couple, were good enough to raise our own daughter and that they had already found her a nice family. And you guys, that's how it happens. That's how babies are able to be taken from the hospital. They already have a family picked out. We were both physically and psychologically tortured inside this hospital for 3 days before they kicked us out and removing our newborn infant from the building, claiming that we were unfit parents, even though we already had 2 healthy, happy children, and even though we had done nothing wrong. At 3 days old, they took her to an undisclosed location and refused to tell us where she was or even how she was doing. We eventually found out that our newborn daughter, whom we had planned for and worked so hard to carry and have, was taken to an undisclosed location to a woman who worked in the DCS courthouse as a court clerk, who also happened to be the judge's niece. Wow, talk about impropriety and nepotism. Our baby girl Sophia was then labeled as their merchandise, as a legal risk pre-adoptive foster child, meaning they planned from the very beginning to terminate our rights and adopt out our child, at which point their federal compensation checks started rolling in for her. The state of Connecticut receives over $1,600 a month in federal funding for each child they remove from their parents' custody. About $2,000 of that is allotted to the foster parents, and the rest is pocketed by the state. You cannot imagine the sheer trauma and torment we both went through in the following days and weeks that turned into months and years. For the first few months, I could still feel her kicking inside me. And then day after day, I had to relive remembering that she was gone. Parents who have had their child pass away are connected with grief counselors to help them get through it. After they got what they wanted, Peter and I were just tossed out into the snow like yesterday's garbage to be carried off with the wind. What they are doing is a crime, and it's called human trafficking. Their entire corrupt state, including senators and the governor, and all were willing to do or say anything they could to cover it up. They even made public announcements that Peter and I were scam artists just trying to defraud the internet for money, and that our daughter Sophia didn't even exist. We were then forced to fight for her from 1,000 miles away for an additional 3.5 years, where the corrupt Connecticut DCFs continue to bully, torture, and abuse us for nothing more than their own selfish hatred and greed. The individuals responsible for the kidnapping and subsequent human trafficking of our only child, Sophia, were never criminally charged or brought to justice in any way. They are allowed to run free and continue wreaking havoc on the lives of other innocent families and children while severely abusing and misusing their power however and whenever they want. They seemingly answer to no one and are never held accountable, and that's how it is across the country. They snatch up these safe, loved children, give them to substandard foster families, and then who knows? Who knows what happens to those children? Our struggle is real, and it continues until this very day. Children at the border and those abroad are not the only ones being tormented and torn from the parents and siblings and families they love. Babies and children in this very nation are ripped from their families every day. The children are basically taken at random, just like our daughter was. They told us that they were taking her, and we didn't. This very nation